Welcome to another episode of Sheroes Unlimited. I'm Jaynie Morris, CEO and founder of Sheroes Unlimited, our global community for women over 50. And I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to our guest on this particular episode. And the reason that I'm thrilled is because if you haven't seen the latest issue of Sheroes Unlimited, our magazine, make sure you go to our website, www.SheroesUnlimited.com. And at the moment, you can actually get the magazine delivered to you for free. Go and check it out because this amazing woman was featured in our latest issue, the October issue of 2021. We came across her, and I'll get to that in a moment, came across her through a friend of a friend, a much loved friend of the Sheroes Unlimited community. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But before we do, I'd love to introduce you to the amazing Donna Sharam. She is an Australian designer and artist. Her tagline is art with smile style. And once we had her in the magazine, we knew we had to share her more globally. So Donna, welcome to Sheroes Unlimited.
Thank you very, very much for having me, Jaynie.
And we can absolutely see right now, not only by what you're wearing, but also from what's behind you, why your tagline is art with smile style.
I think some people call me the colour queen, and I suppose there's a reason.
Well, for those of you who are listening to this podcast only by audio at the moment on Spotify or Apple or iTunes or wherever you get your podcast apps, you are missing out right now because from a visual perspective, Donna is all color. If you do want to see what I'm seeing right now, make sure you go to our YouTube channel. Of course, go to the website. You can pick this podcast up with the video. Now, Donna, a little bit of background on you that I have heard is that you grew up in the Australian bush country. You're a country girl, that you moved to Sydney, you studied fashion design, and then you moved to Byron Bay. Fill in the gaps for our audience.
Yes, absolutely. I grew up in a very small country town called Coonabarabran. I think 3,000 people in the little country town, northwest of Sydney, about 7 hours when I was living there, because that's how long it took for us to visit Sydney. I grew up, I went to school, I rode horses before and after school, I swam in local creeks. It was an absolutely fantastic childhood. I was always said to be different. And I can remember one day my mum being horrified when I turned up at the small parochial country tennis club where she was playing tennis, and I had on, purple bell-bottom pants, red and green shoes, yes, one different one on each foot, stripy stockings, also things that really were very out there for a small country town. So I've always been different. I've always loved colour, and I grew up really planning to be a fashion designer. So after year 12, finished my HSC, and I went to Sydney College of the Arts to study fashion design. I was incredibly lucky because only 25 people got in, and half of them were mature age students who'd been working in the fashion industry trying to get into uni. Fantastic 4 years. It really taught me a lot, particularly I think about colour and design. And so after university, I went and worked for a couple of fashion houses in Sydney. And then I started my own label. Then I got married. Then I had 3 children. Then I continued fashion design, but I was doing sort of one-off bespoke fashion pieces, particularly for weddings or sort of events. And then for some unknown reason, somehow I started moving into designing homewares. So I was doing painted furniture and textiles and things like that. And I started selling it in my local area, which then was Blackheath, the Blue Mountains of west of Sydney. And the shops that I was selling to started asking for artwork to match my homewares. And that's sort of how it happened. I moved sort of from the fashion design industry into becoming an artist, really by just starting to paint what you might call decorative art, really things that people wanted to hang behind their lounge because it matched their decor. And that was sort of when I had 3 little children, and then we decided to move to the North Coast up near Byron Bay. And I said to my husband, I'm not going to paint anymore what people want to hang behind the lounge. I'm going to start to paint the way I see the world. And my world is full of joy and happiness and colour. And the amazing thing is that when I started to paint exactly the way I see the world, people want to hang it behind their lounge. So that's really the fill-in of how that happened.
Isn't that interesting? I think that's a really good point that you've just made, because one of the things that we love about doing the Sheroes Unlimited series podcasts is women like yourself who follow a certain path from childhood and take with them bits and pieces of their passion, however, then sort of get a little bit into the mold of what's expected. However, then, like you just said, when you make the decision that what you're doing in life with something that fuels your heart, and you do it from your perspective, that all of a sudden you discover that's what the rest of the world wants from you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that's very interesting as an artist, a lot of people in the art world might talk about 2 different forms of art. One is what we call art for art's sake, painting from or creating from the soul. And the other one is maybe creating for your bread and butter, you know. And often I think people, I hear it said a lot, oh, I don't care if I sell this. It's just art for art's sake. It's really painting from my soul. Now, what is amazing for me, I suppose, is that I have been able to marry both of those, because what I paint from the soul, actually, I think it's because of the elements of myself that are in it, in my artwork, which is joy and happiness, is actually what people want. And so it becomes, you might call it commercial or your bread and butter, but it really is absolutely painted from my inside out.
One of the many things that you have been achieving through your art, Donna, is the fact that you now have global partnerships with companies that are just so aligned with what you're doing, and as you identified, from a commercial perspective, they've identified that there's a huge market for colour and joy and happiness, and taking you on board. Was that something that you were, the global partnerships taking your business to the next level, was that something that you actively pursued, or did that come to you in some form?
I suppose it was a dream. It was a dream, and in some ways I think whenever you have a dream, whether you write it down, which I always think is a good idea, but whether you write it down or whether you focus on it, I think if it's a dream, it's there. And so you often take steps to achieve something, even if you're not completely conscious all the time of doing that. The first partnership really that took on or that came on was a bit of an accident, and that was with a gallery in America called Park West Galleries, who have something like 120 at least physical galleries, and most of them are on board cruise ships, 6 different liners, Holland, America, you know, Celebrity, very good cruise liners. And so they actually have physical galleries on the ships. and they discovered my work. And so they wanted to reproduce it as limited edition canvases that I sign. And so when that happened in 2016, and my work was selling overnight all around the world, and I would wake up in the morning to these messages of people saying, I've just discovered and it's just fantastic and I love it. So in a way, that put me very much on an international scale, because then I started receiving a lot of orders from people wanting original paintings from the USA, from Canada, from Europe. And then I suppose often once you get one sort of exposure, other people are interested. So it was then that I joined the partnership with Maxwell and Williams, the big iconic quality brand homewares company in Melbourne, but they distribute to 26 countries all over the world. They have produced, I've just, I think, just put out my 5th range with them since 2017. I have a Christmas range coming out, which is just sort of hit the shops, so you can get it in Maya and lots of homeware shops. I have a new range of animals called Jungle Love. And I was going to say, it's bright, it's happy. And I think people love to be able to have a little bit of that joy and happiness. I think they've sold close to 3 million units.
Wow.
Over the world. So that means I love the fact that I'm spreading or sprinkling love and joy and happiness all around the world. That actually is my greatest joy. It's got nothing to do with the money or anything like that. It's absolutely got to do with the joy that I feel I'm injecting into sometimes an otherwise sort of unstable world.
Well, you're certainly doing that, and on a very big scale, and we can quantify that with 3 million at least. Donna, what would you say inspires you?
What inspires me? I don't know if it sounds corny, but what inspires me is that I just absolutely love my life. I just love it. I have, a fabulous husband, albeit rather demanding at times. I have 3 boys who really are all a little quirky. I live in paradise. I live, in the hills behind Byron Bay, where the grass is green and the weather is always sunny, except today it's raining. But I think, you know what it is? It's that I see sunshine everywhere. I just, not every day is fantastic, and I'm not trying to imply that just put on a happy face. It's not like that. And not everything in my world is in any way perfect. I have a lot of things that are struggles at times, but I choose to focus on the 80% that's good rather than complain about the 20% that's not. And I think in doing that, I just seem to be able to give joy and receive joy, and I love it.
Let's talk about and expand on that for a moment. Then when we mentioned before about when you actually made that decision and said to your husband, you know what, now I'm going to start painting what I want to paint, how I see the world. And we mentioned that how immediately that aligned with so many people around the world. So obviously that alignment actually came along in the form also of, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast today, our much loved Mel D, a great friend and supporter of Sheroes Unlimited. Now she actually found you through your homewares initially. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Mel D's story, I'll just touch on the fact that she's gone through a lot of cancer treatment, and now she's an MND survivor. thriver going through motor neuron disease. She's an incredible woman. If you haven't heard of her name on anything that we've done so far, just go to our website. We've got so much there on Mel D of what she has done with her career in the media. But why I share the fact that she went through significant cancer treatment for a few years. The story that she tells me is that she and her amazing husband, Chris, went and bought boxes of your mugs, your colourful mugs, and took them back to where she was getting chemotherapy and gave them, each of the nurses there, one of those as a gift. That was how she shared with me that she actually discovered you. Now, of course, we know that she is now a published author, and you are the illustrator of the most amazing book, AZZURRA. Now, can you tell me, tell our audience a little bit about this collaboration and how did you find it?
And just before I do, Jaynie, I'll just fill in a slightly little bit more. When Mel was going through, it must have been maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, she might correct me on the timing, but she was going through her second, or recovering from her second lot of chemo, from her second bout of cancer. And she discovered my images on Facebook. And so she reached out to me to ask or inquire about buying one. And so she bought an artwork called The Peace Tree. And she wanted it so that every morning when she woke up in her recovery and was sitting in her chair with the sun coming in, she could see the painting on the wall, and it gave her, you know, a feeling of real happiness and peace. That was sort of our first connection. And so it's amazing because then we started chatting and then we became friends. And then when she was going through her third bout of cancer, she bought all these mugs, and I made little special gift cards that matched the mug, so she could give it as a really lovely gift to all of the nurses who were looking after her. And another amazing story is that I posted that on Facebook, and one of my followers saw it and reached out to me to ask me to reimburse her the money that so my customer wanted to pay Mel so that she could really be the donator. So
yeah,
I mean,
story.
That was amazing. And so instead, Mel said, "No, I want to pay, but will the lady give another 24 mugs to the cancer unit?" So now they're being used by all the patients as well. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of a thrill.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And now you're the illustrator of AZZURRA.
I've got it.
It is. How did you find that collaboration?
When Mel first asked me, I said no. I said, I'm not an illustrator, I'm an artist, or I'm a painter. And mostly I paint, as you can see by the large artworks behind me. I mean, I really don't like painting much smaller than a 60 by 60 canvas. So the thought that I was going to have to do all of these artworks for this book, she pushed me, she said, please, please, please. I even actually gave her the name of a couple of other artists that I thought could do it for her. In the end, I said, look, I'll give it a go. And it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I discovered, it was a challenge, but I discovered a new way of working. And I think the thing that is the greatest thing, I suppose, is that every time I did a new page or a new illustration, I'd shoot it off to Mel to have a look at it. And she would just come back in tears or say, that's exactly what I was imagining, or that's fantastic. Or so, and absolutely, I'm really easy to work with. So absolutely anything she suggested or asked me to change or asked me to add, I was like only too happy, because I feel like this is really her book and her story. I'm really happy to have illustrated it, but I'm very, very happy for Mel to get the, the accolades for it.
It's a great collaboration, and it's a beautiful book, and our understanding is it's the first in a series. So we're looking forward to the next one as well. And as you mentioned before, like the whole story around AZZURRA as well is Mel's dream is that this book, because it's about a child with cancer, and taking them through hope and positivity and love and joy, which is everything that you've already shared with us, that is all of you as well, Donna. So I can, I'm sure that our audience can also, like I can see why the alignment and the collaboration has occurred. But of course, Mel D's big dream is that this book gets into every ward of every cancer centre around the world for children, because it is such an inspiration, as are you, and your work is incredible. Donna, before we let you go, we do have to ask you, I do have to ask, as I ask every one of my guests, if you had an 8-year-old Donna in front of you right now, what advice would you give her?
I would say, find your passion. If you don't know what it is, follow your passion. Don't give up. Persevere. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Because if you keep going, you will get there. If you keep going, you'll get there. If you stop and do something else, your dream will never be realised. But if you keep going, you can imagine absolutely any dream you want.
Great advice, not just for an 8-year-old, but for everybody listening right now. Absolutely. Donna, if anybody would like to get in touch with you so that they can see your amazing work, how will they do that?
Well, there's a few ways. First way is that my website is www.donnasharam.com.au. That's the first way. But if you type my name in to the internet, you'll find me anyway. The other one is Facebook, Donna Sharam Art Gallery, Instagram, Donna Sharam Art Gallery. Pop into your homeware shop, you'll find me in there. So I'm pretty easy to find. And I'm always willing to talk to people that have any inquiries on the phone as well.
It's fantastic. And all of your details, all your contact details for our listeners, just have a look underneath where you're listening to your podcast right now, because all of the links and all of the contact details for Donna are there. And as I mentioned before, we featured Donna in our recent issue of Sheroes Unlimited magazine. So go to our website, www.SheroesUnlimited.com, and go there, have a look at that article. She's expanded even more on that. There, and of course the beautiful book that you did in collaboration with Mel D, that's available from our shop at our website as well, so people can get their own copy of that and see that artwork. Donna, your work is amazing. You're an incredibly inspiring woman. I know you're incredibly busy as well. Byron Bay is one of my favorite places in the world, and given that, as you said at the top of this interview, we are currently living in a very ever-evolving, ever-changing, crazy world, I'm hoping that in the near future I get back to Byron Bay, and when I do, I'll come and see you, and we'll do a live, and we'll share with our audience even more face-to-face.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic. In fact, where I'm sitting at the moment is in my home. So we have a gallery in our home, and we also have an Airbnb overlooking the beautiful hinterland, and it's created as if you're staying in Donna's art studio. So
fantastic. Well, that's fantastic. Well, that's where I'll be booking into, and listeners, you just heard it. So just go to donnasharam.com.au, get in contact with her. If you're thinking of going on a holiday, you're in Australia, you want to stay at Byron Bay, there's another plug. Go and stay with Donna and her family in her Airbnb and have a look at her amazing works. Donna, it's been fantastic having you on, not only in the magazine, thank you for that opportunity, but also as our very special guest today on this episode of Sheroes Unlimited.
Thank you so much, Jaynie. It's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and it's an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Donna. And to all of our listeners, thank you once again for tuning in on our Sheroes Unlimited podcast. Now, if you like this and you'd like to help us share it along so that we can spread the word about Donna and her amazing work, and also Sheroes Unlimited, our global community for women over 50, then please share it. That's what it's all about, spreading the love, sharing our podcast. Go to our website. You can catch up on all the other episodes that we have there. There's even an episode, our Behind the Book, Sheroes Unlimited Behind the Book podcast. There's an episode there with Mel D about the beautiful book AZZURRA that Donna did illustrate as well. And if you never want to miss an episode of Sheroes Unlimited or any of our podcasts, then make sure that you subscribe. Because we always make sure that all of our latest podcasts get sent to you straight away as soon as they're aired. So wherever you are in this amazing, beautiful world of ours, it's been my absolute pleasure to have your company again. And we look forward to you tuning in on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iTunes. We're all over them and we're all around the world. I'm Jaynie Morris. I look forward to having your company next on Sheroes Unlimited.